Welcome to Microsoft's Insurance Corner with your presenters, Heather Haley, Insurance Account CTO at Microsoft.
And I'm Steve Walker, Insurance Cloud and AI Platform Specialist at Microsoft. With this series, we aim to cut through the noise to bring you practical insights on the Microsoft technologies reshaping the UK insurance sector, from agentic AI to data platforms, developer experience, security, and the future of underwriting and claims.
This series is designed to give leaders and practitioners clear, actionable perspectives you can take straight back into your organisation. No hype, just real conversations, real expertise, and real value. Thanks for joining us. Let's get into today's discussion. Right, Steve, we had Mike on today.
Yes, Heather, we were joined with Mike Dawson, one of our AI workforce specialists. So when it comes to AI and everything agentic, his expertise sits well within the Copilot space. And on that low code side of things, I thought he was a very, very good guest indeed. And I think one of the main themes around his talk track was positioning AI as a platform, I think, rather than getting too bogged down with the individual models themselves and who's winning the model race at that particular week. Try to take a step back and consider a platform like Copilot to be treated exactly like that. And almost don't think about the model that's underlying each prompt that you put in.
Indeed. I guess to his point, he put it very eloquently, but the idea that a model's not particularly powerful unless you've got a way to consume it. And I'm looking forward to hearing his perspective around how this is going to come to life, some tips and tricks, and where he sees us moving forward, especially for some of our insurance orgs.
Yeah, I think so. And we jump into some practical use cases as well, don't we, around sort of some proper tidbits that our listeners can take away from this episode on, how to boost their personal productivity. Should we jump straight into it?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. We are delighted today to be joined with Mike Dawson. Mike, welcome to Insurance Corner.
Hey, lovely to be here. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to building on some of the sessions that you've had so far. Love the Spotify launch as well. So I'm a follower myself now. So really looking forward to contributing to this.
Well, thank you very much. Fantastic. Do you want to take just a couple of minutes to say hi to everyone and introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Michael Dawson. I'm an AI workforce specialist. What does that mean? Across the last 3 years now, and I can't believe it's been 3 years, I've been speaking and working with financial services customers across the UK on how to bring AI into their workflows and ultimately help them transform business processes. So that's where we've been spending a lot of time. I've been with Microsoft for coming up to 9 years. And so done a fair few roles, and this one's very exciting. Bleeding edge. It's really cool.
Fantastic. And we wanted to drill into your ethos that you position with customers about how we should be approaching AI use cases and the relationship between the models themselves and the use case and the actual prompts that you put in. And we're trying to consider AI as a platform. So is that probably the best place to start today, Mike? Yeah,
no, definitely. And it's interesting. Copilot's evolved, and Copilot, if you're not familiar with it, is the kind of off-the-shelf Microsoft offering when it comes to leveraging AI across the Office 365 ecosystem. Or that's at least where the journey began. And when the journey began, the journey began really with, at a consumer level at least, with ChatGPT. And I downloaded it as soon as it became available, and still to this day leverage it in my personal life. I'm managing the sleep needs of a 2-year-old right now using ChatGPT, and it knows all about Arabella, my daughter, and that's about as far as it goes with my usage there as a consumer. But from a work perspective, certainly since Copilot came along, it's become part of my day to day now. It's the first application that I open. And typically in fact it doesn't close at night anymore because it runs overnight, and we'll maybe come on to that. It's 24/7, which I'm definitely not at the moment. So Copilot 3 years ago now launched as a product, and I use that word intentionally because it was a product at first. But we've really been on a journey since then, and the way I'm talking to customers now is more around Copilot actually being a platform. And you may have seen some language like UI for AI, the user interface for generative AI, and I think we've gone on a step from that now with the introduction of agents, whether that's consuming agents or building agents. Copilot now for me is an enterprise grade agentic AI platform that's secured and governed, and which is really important and sometimes forgotten in the enterprise space.
And I guess, Mike, it's particularly timely having you on the show because we had Microsoft Build last week. Obviously, huge of announcements, huge more features introduced into Copilot and our sort of agentic capabilities in our agent platform. I guess it would be remiss of us not to call out AutoPilot. I'd love to hear where you're seeing this, how customers are receiving it. I appreciate you've probably got some personal examples of how you're using it, but just thinking out loud, would be lovely to hear how you see some of our insurers also engaging with it.
Yes, yeah. And Autopilot for me, as an ex-Surface specialist who lived and breathed, SCCM and then Intune and Autopilot, that it screams device management and the deployment of devices. But no, in this agentic and this Copilot world now, Autopilot builds on the concept that we've really been landing quite hard with Copilot, because Copilot was intentional, right? The naming convention there was intentional. Copilot was and is still to this day. I have to live and breathe by this because of the way the product's built. It'll only get you 70% of the way there, and I say only. That's still remarkable, right? Because that just the cognitive load that removes. I'm currently, and I'm looking at my screen. I've got 5 presentations open right now, all that have been spun up leveraging various parts of the Microsoft AI stack, predominantly Copilot, in various guises. And that starting point is no longer blank page, oh my God, where do I start? What's the skeleton structure of this? What's the arc for my storytelling here? Dependent on whether it's an internal presentation or a customer presentation, Copilot has that context and leverages something that we refer to as work IQ. And so I can get 70-80% of the way there. Now that's Copilot, and we've intentionally called it Copilot for a reason. Coming back to your question though around the Autopilot element that we've announced at Build, well, that's going to start showing up in certain agents that are going to be given the controls, going to be given an identity, going to be given the access to actually go and autonomously and from an Autopilot perspective, go and do things overnight, and they're going to just be running around your workplace where you work, doing the things that you would traditionally have to do maybe in the morning, and they'll just execute on your behalf. Just to bring that to life, just in another couple of sentences, and to give you a product to look out for, there's going to be something called Scout as an agent, a first-party agent called Microsoft Scout. And that is going to be, I believe, one of our first Autopilot agents that will just monitor your mail, monitor your calendar, do the things that you do on a very regular basis that are just that extra layer of admin that again adds to that cognitive load. And a lot of this stuff is stuff that maybe doesn't need approval from the human in the same way that Copilot does. And so with the right permissions and the right controls, and that's what's really important, we always have to ground ourselves in the fact that we are working with highly regulated customers, notably our insurance customers. And so with the right controls, these new agents that have this ability to go and execute, it's exciting. I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, I've downloaded the Scout internal preview that we've got, and I can see a great use case for this. I'd start with a low risk use case because I wouldn't perhaps trust it emailing customers, I think. But what I'm going to probably try and do is get it to book. We have to have briefing calls for all of our guests, find 30 minutes to have a chat with them. And with Work IQ, you can be confident that it does know the blocks that Mike has in his calendar, Heather has in hers, and I do in mine. Can it find 30 minutes for us just to get together and then perhaps put together that Word document for me that says, right, well, we had a quick chat over a Teams call and it was suggested that Mike could come on the podcast to talk about such and such a topic. Put me together that briefing document, embed the link into the invite or the body of an invite for 30 minutes next week for us to talk about Mike's upcoming episode on Insurance Corner, for example. I just think that would be such a good use case for that kind of thing. And it depends on how far you want to lean into it. So once I'm confident with that, then I definitely see a future where, you perhaps trust it to start taking care of communications, or at least putting drafts in that could perhaps go externally, or that's not quite so risk.
Yeah, and you're right. You've got to start with the low risk stuff, and actually, Scout is the name that we've landed on, and that will go into Frontier, and which is our kind of Copilot preview program, and then hopefully eventually become GA, so generally available for our customers. But prior to Scout becoming a thing at Build, for a few months now, there's been several of us testing this AutoPilot, this open Claw kind of AutoPilot application, if you like, or agent maybe, which again, you there's the version we've been using. You download an instance to your desktop. You give it permissions to look at certain applications, and I know there's a few of us, myself included, who've pointed it to Dynamics, where we run our expenses submissions, and we've actually been offloading the expenses submission process to AutoPilot. So Scout is a skin of AutoPilot, and I'm quite old school. Well, I feel like I'm quite old school when it comes to expenses at Microsoft. I'm taking pictures of receipts. I'm then hitting the share button from my gallery on my iPhone, sticking them into a file in OneDrive, and then I'm going in and I guess on a weekly basis, and I kid you not, it probably takes me anywhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours every week to do my expenses, because it's 3 trips into London, it's the parking, it's the train travel, it's the bit that takes the time is the looking at my calendar, like why was I in London on the 1st of April, and so it's a lot of that cross-referencing. And guess what? AutoPilot, it can go to the receipt in my OneDrive location. It will do a read of what's on the receipt. It will then go to my Exchange out my calendar, and it will understand why I was in London, let's say, and then honestly, it blew my mind. There was some approvals that I had to give it, so I could see as I was sort of working with this tool what it was asking for approvals on. But it would go away, and I was on meetings, I was doing things like this, I was sending emails, and every now and then I check in on my AutoPilot, and I would just hit approve, check that it was still in the right direction, that it was categorizing my receipts correctly, and it did a wonderful job. And it got approved immediately by my manager, and it just honestly saved me 90 minutes. And that's just one use case that's actually new to me. And I've been using AI now in my work for 3 years now. And again, another 90 minutes saved, right, from a new feature.
It's fantastic. And just for the folks who aren't aware, so OpenClaw is an open source solution that I think the difference between a model that's running in the cloud and a model that's running locally, which is what AutoPilot is, it's giving you the ability to hand the keys and the reins over to an agent that's running on your laptop. So it will, you don't see the mouse moving, but it is effectively allowing the mouse to click around and do the actions that a human would do. But all happening instantly using AI.
Yeah, I just I'll maybe close out on the expenses piece, but just seeing AutoPilot open up a browser, on my machine, and then head to dynamics.microsoft. whatever the expenses URL is, and then witnessing it, like actually making sense of the page, and then understanding where to click. It blew my mind, genuinely. So yeah, it's super exciting. Yeah.
It's a fascinating one, because this is probably the hook I've been talking to most of my customers about, and it is the one that I'm finding the underwriting teams and the brokers absolutely mad for. Again, to your point, all the travel, the meetings, the fact that a lot of this is, self-funded in their world as well. So, for example, if they miss an expense from a Tuesday, as you said, like a parking ticket, etc., It's it's their personal money. So the fact that I've sort of added in, when we were doing some experimentation, that added line that says, please scrape my calendar for anything that I might have missed, and it's actively suggested receipts that I should be putting in. Just, yeah, brilliant. Such a simple use case that you said saves time, but also, make sure there's actually potentially like a cost saving there for the individuals involved.
Definitely, again, I think AI is great if everything's sort of born and built in the cloud, and you're online, and it's great. But thinking about antiquated or maybe on-premise solutions or applications that are wedded to the device itself, it's if you think about that, then the opportunities are kind of endless, really, when it comes to bringing AI and an agentic or AI lens onto perhaps data or processes that historically have been untouchable. But yeah, no, really exciting, and I think the big announcements, one of the big announcements from Build.
Remember, you can get in touch with the show on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you with feedback, thoughts, and even suggestions for the future episodes. Now back to the show.
Can we pivot back to models and running AI in the cloud over running stuff locally at the moment? I think what we wanted to try and touch upon was Microsoft have just announced at Build another 7 models that are our own first-party models, the Microsoft AI ones. And I think it harkens back to an episode that we've had previously on sustainability and the choice of models and how much of that falls on the consumer to understand, right, well, I'm going to choose the Microsoft AI model because it is most efficient versus one of the GPT or the Claude models. Or do we trust in Microsoft's auto mode in Copilot, just to say that it will understand the context of what you're asking, and it will pick the model that is either A, cheapest, or B, sustainable, or both? How much of that do you think falls upon the consumer to be keeping up with this kind of stuff, Mike?
It's a really good question, and it's something that actually I get quite passionate about, and I think is a point of conversation that's been, I hope, really landing with customers, because for 3 years now there's been this tit for tat race with other model providers, and I say other model providers, until recently actually Microsoft haven't had a model. We've, as you know, been somewhat wedded to OpenAI and the models, the GPT models there within. And so there's been this kind of natural comparison of Copilot with ChatGPT. So Copilot is Microsoft's kind of chat generative AI engine. ChatGPT is OpenAI's. And for years now, and I'm sure you've both been having the same sorts of conversations, it's been, oh, we've not got GPT this, and oh, you've got GPT that, and now there are other model providers, and I bring into the conversation Anthropic here, who have got Claude as an example model, and there's other models available around the world. I know Grok is available in the US. There's Gemini, obviously. So lots of different models from different providers, and to be honest, I work in technology, so there's an element of interest, I guess, in the models that are being used, because for years now I've been at the kind of bleeding edge of technology, and it's what I read about at night, it's what I read about when I wake up in the morning. So there's interest, but I can almost guarantee you that a general information worker who's working in a role across insurance, let's take the broker as an example here, are they going to necessarily care about the model? Are they going to care about, whether it's GPT 5.5 or whether it's, Claude 4.7? Probably not. And I think this is where the Copilot platform, really kind of comes into it. And actually, I didn't cover this in our briefing call, but I've come up with this analogy actually to maybe help the listeners sort of understand it. And I guess as we're around the corner from the World Cup, would it be okay if I applied a bit of a football analogy to how I see this? Is that okay? So I actually think about the models as the different players on the football pitch, right? So we're days away now from the FIFA World Cup 2026 kicking off, and there are hundreds of players going to this tournament. And I see the players as kind of the models, really, the large language models. Do we know every single large language model out there? No. Do we need to? Probably not. But the models are all serving a different purpose. You don't want a striker in goal, and you don't want a goalie up front. and they all come with their own unique set of skills. But does the fan, does a fan watching the match, who's maybe a neutral, need to necessarily understand the background and the skill sets that each brings? Probably not. You've then got the manager who's kind of on the touchline, right? Orchestrating what's happening on the field, and I'd say that actually that's Copilot, and that's the role that Copilot should be playing, or any UI, any user interface should be playing, orchestrating these various models to, get a job done at a certain time in a certain way, and that's what that manager's doing. And then we've got the rules of the game. We've got the referees, and for me, that's the underlying principles. That's everything from the responsible AI framework to the compliance and the security settings that at an enterprise level have to be applied. And again, that's all baked into that Copilot experience. And then it's funny, the final part of this analogy is that fan experience. So when you're in the stadium, what is the experience? And maybe for a neutral, let's keep to the kind of neutral fan idea here. You're in the stadium, and it's about everything that's around you, and it's about the ease of access. It's about seeing a great match play out in front of you, and hopefully as many goals as possible. Right now, that for me is that Copilot, or is the AI showing up in the place that you are already working. So that's Copilot hitting you in Teams, in Outlook, in Word, in PowerPoint, in Excel, and these really powerful applications that I believe we've got fans of around the world. There are Excel fans, PowerPoint fans. I'm certainly one of those. And so I think if I was to finish up on that analogy and just to sort of go back through that, does the fan care about the neutral fan, about the players on the pitch necessarily? No, they just want to see a great game, and they just want to see a lot of goals and have some real excitement. The coach on the sidelines, that's Copilot orchestrating the game, making things happen. And then, as I say, that those rules, which actually bringing it back to the World Cup, there's new rules and new technology, coming to this particular tournament. That is the underlying enterprise security and governance that needs to be in place. So, yeah, I thought it was a kind of a cute way or a nice way of looking at Copilot and this model. Which LLM, it's Copilot isn't here to make that decision. It's you can go in and you can choose GPT, Claude, Sonnet, but really the user, a general user, generalist, just leave it in auto mode and enjoy the game. That's what I'd say.
Oh my God, I absolutely love that. And it's inspired me. I'm pretty sure I can start getting my team's background with the World Cup.
Yes.
Ready to go.
Yeah. So yeah, in fact, you were saying maybe a use case that you use Copilot for. I'll admit I've got the Panini World Cup sticker book for this particular tournament. There's a few reasons why. I'm not a big nerd, but I actually am. I am a bit of a nerd, but I'm actually really enjoying it. Collecting the stickers, opening the packs. But turns out you do actually get a lot of like swapsies, and I'm not at school anymore. I can't just go down to the playground and do this swapsies. So I've using Copilot Co-work, which we might not have time to dive into too much, and maybe another speaker later down the line can cover this off, or I come back, who knows. But using Copilot Co-work, I've built this really cool spreadsheet that helps me track, and now others track, the swaps that they've got. It's beautifully categorized by the group that they're in, the page of the book that the stickers are. Honestly, I could have never done anything like that inside Excel, but a few prompts using natural language, and yeah, I've got this really powerful Panini World Cup trading sticker Excel spreadsheet thing.
I absolutely adore that. But Mike, I do think for those listening, you have demystified whether you're a bit of a nerd or not.
Yeah, maybe there's few tales throughout this.
Oh.
Heather and I have got some great ideas for episodes lined up in the future. So remember to subscribe to Insurance Corner wherever you get your podcasts. Now back to the show. We can absolutely dive into Co-work, Mike. I use it quite frequently. The trouble is, though, I'm going to explain to people what it is, and I'm going to use the name of a model, right? I'm going to say this is Microsoft's implementation of the Claude models, right? Because We always know the Claude models are at the moment best suited for producing something. So, and you've described the use case there, building your sticker swapsies tracker. But I will use it for producing decks, and I'm just safe in the knowledge that Microsoft's Work IQ has the knowledge of every meeting that I've ever been to, and we get into the habit of transcribing everything. So, I can just say, of all the daily stand-ups I've had on one particular project, produce me a deck for my senior leadership that says, well, what are the risks for this project? What was discussed? What are the discussions that have taken place? And what decisions were reached if it's a technical project, for example? So I've been using it very, very successfully for that. But any other use cases that you can think of that you've been using it for, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to build on your example there of taking a transcript and turning it into something. Because I think sometimes when it comes to planning for anything, I mean, you guys will know that we will go into planning mode soon, if not so already, for our fiscal 27 that kicks off on the 1st of July. So we're thinking really deeply about where our customers' insurance, need support, where there are maybe some gaps that we think they could really benefit from. So we go into this deep planning mode, and with all good plans, unfortunately, at Microsoft, usually means a PowerPoint presentation. And sometimes in my 8 years at Microsoft, more time goes into the layout, the flow, and the look of the presentation than actually the thing that really matters, which is helping our customers. And so I've now, with my team, been quite intentional about, right, guys, let's just forget the slides, right? Let's just have the conversation and really think deeply. Let's use this hour not to worry about slide layout, but let's worry about the customer, the direction of travel, where they are today, the challenges that they've got, and have a really good quality conversation, knowing that Copilot's going to capture the transcript in Teams, knowing that, to your point, Steve, I can now use CoWork or PowerPoint itself just to go and build the slides. God, I can even now point a brand new presentation to a template. So if there's a planning template that I have to use, which there is, I can now point Copilot, CoWork to that template and say, right, use the transcripts over these 3-4 hours of really good conversation where we've not worried about presentation methods or styles, and go and structure it. Now, that for me is really transformational, and that for me is an example of maybe not time saving, but maybe quality. And an enhancement and an improvement in the quality of the work that we're doing. And it also reinforces this kind of human in the loop. There's no LLM that understands our customers as well as we do, right? As a collective, team. And so, getting that, that intelligence across an organization via Work IQ into document is the power. Is that power?
I think that's fabulous, Mike. And I've seen you use that workflow in action, and it is phenomenal then sort of what that translates from a content, all you've mentioned around sort of intention and actually making sure that there is substance behind everything we're producing. I think what I'm excited to sort of pass on is we're working quite closely with a lot of client services team in our broker orgs, where there's lots of questions around, cross-sell, upsell, how do we, share insight, client knowledge across different asset classes as well. So I think what you're doing internally here is something that we could definitely, or should absolutely be used in these broker communities, because turning these hour-long transcripts where they're sort of really scrumming on client issues into fabulous proposals or client strategies, that immediately is something that's come to mind that I'd love to talk to some of our broker customers about.
It's timely, Heather, because I'm one of the I've mentioned maybe a couple of times, on this recording now. I've got 7 presentations open, and one of them is exactly that. It's a broker AI enablement pack, demonstrating how brokers could leverage Copilot across their various workloads, and one of them is the pitch deck. We go on this journey of leveraging transcriptions, leveraging previous renewals, and we're on this journey to present a renewal basically for an insurance policy, and I've just executed using synthetic data that I've also built using CoWork. Won't go into that now, But I've built this really great customer facing, client facing sort of presentation to run them through their 26, 27 insurance premium, and also some justification as to why there have been, in some instances, a 30% increase on a particular line. And honestly, it's all been derived. This whole pack has been derived from, email conversations with this client over 18 months, meeting transcriptions that we've been having with this client, the claims, that the client's made as well. And it all builds into this new pitch, which, yeah, is hugely time saving for that client facing individual. And if you think about scaling that across an entire organization, again, it's not just the time saving, it's not just the quality improvements. This is proper transformation of how work gets done, and that's why I show up to work. It's not so that people do prompts in Copilot. It's seeing people genuinely transform. Not how someone's working, but how an organization is delivering success for their clients and their customers. So that's what excites me.
It can be directly translated into additional revenue streams, right? It's easily trackable that way. If a broker is there having more conversations or more meaningful conversations, or is at least using AI to prep so that they have the information at their fingertips at the start of the meeting, and they can concentrate on the connection that they're having, and then at the end they can rest assured that the actions are taken care of automatically afterwards. Again, yeah, that is very, very not a stretch at all to equate that back to additional revenue for your org.
Yeah, of course. And look, I'm a consumer of insurance products as well, and it's a commodity, right? To some extent. I mean, who insures my house? Right now, off the top of my head, quick fire, I don't know. So, but imagine a world where actually there's and this world exists, right? And this is the journey that we're trying to help our customers with. It's that hyper personalization. It's the outreach in advance of a renewal. It's the understanding of the client, and it's doing all of those things, but without missing a beat on all the other elements that are part of that workload. So, yeah, there's huge amounts of opportunity to integrate AI agents into not just the transformation of the business functions, HR, legal, finance, etc., but really that client-facing side of things, which if you're boosting your retention rate, if you're capturing new markets, you're improving the bottom line ultimately, and that's what we're here to help our customers do.
I love that, Mike, and it's really helped me think a little bit differently about how we position AI as a platform rather than focusing so much on the models. So I thank you for that. I just wanted to ask, is there any final call to action or anything that's got you particularly excited? We've just had build, anything that our customers can take away as an action to get started on something?
It's something that we talk about at Microsoft, and it's be curious with this stuff. Don't wait for someone from Microsoft to walk you through how to use something in our systems within AI, within Copilot. Be curious. Set aside some intentional time every week. It's important because in 10 years' time, not even 10 years' time, in 5 years' time, this sentiment is being landed heavily right now, certainly across the UK. From a UK PLC perspective, is AI won't take your job, but the person who's using AI probably will. So with that in mind, I even myself set half an hour, 45 minutes every Friday just to try and stretch myself in how I'm leveraging AI in my work, and then sharing that as well, because I think we've also got a responsibility, certainly at Microsoft, to share some of these best practices. But yeah, if I was a broker working in an insurance organization, I'd certainly be thinking about, okay, how do I leverage AI, and how do I set some time aside to skill up?
If folks listening wanted to get in touch with you, Mike, how is best to get hold of you?
Yes. So LinkedIn's a good place. Always available there. So Michael Dawson on LinkedIn. You should find me hopefully quite quickly if you add Microsoft to the end of that. And just drop me a message, and I can reach out. Something I do, probably once a fortnight actually. I have people that I've never spoken to before ping me on LinkedIn. Hey, how's things going? Like the look of what you're doing, and would like a conversation. Always happy to take the time out to have that conversation there.
Fantastic. Mike, thanks so much for your time.
No, it's been a real pleasure. And yeah, all the best with the podcast moving forwards. As I say, I am a follower now, so I'll be listening out to future episodes. Not this one, if that's okay. I might skip this one. I think listening to yourself back is always a little bit odd, but no, I've already caught up on a couple of the first that you've ran, and yeah, really great concept, great idea, and all the best with it.
Thanks, Mike. There we have it, Heather. Mike Dawson, how did you think that went?
I thought it was brilliant. As everyone says, every day's a learning day, and I genuinely felt that way. So that is excellent news.
Indeed, absolutely, yes. And I was particularly impressed with his World Cup analogy of the way to think about players on the pitch and the managers and all the. I think when he said, look, just enjoy the game, leave it in auto mode, enjoy the game. I think I couldn't say it any better than that.
I have to admit, when he started that analogy, I was like, oh my gosh, where is he going with this? And then absolutely, when he talked about the manager, the different, almost like comparing the models to the different players, I was like, this makes sense to me. I was like, this is brilliant. So yes, definitely the highlight of the session, I would say.
How has it changed your way of thinking, and when you approach, I don't know, putting a prompt into Copilot, for example, had you ever cared about the model that was underpinning it all?
Oh, very good question. I would say I'm sometimes quite cheeky, and I do tend to over index on putting it into deep think mode. And yes, I have to admit, it's made my brain whir around, what's the logic that's happening behind the scenes. But as as Mike sort of pointed out, I'm probably going to remove some of that control I've had and just let it go a bit wild.
Yes, there is an element of relinquishing control, isn't there? It's, as technologists, I think we tend to get excited about the next technology. So the latest thing for us is co-work. It's just gone generally available. And for us internally, we know that co-work is Microsoft's implementation of the Claude models. But ultimately, that's not necessarily what we should be positioning with customers. We should be talking about what it can achieve, and the how it does it isn't necessarily up for discussion. It shouldn't really form an opinion. We should be focusing much more on the value of things. And again, found it very interesting. Mike put a new perspective on that for me.
Absolutely. I think the other final thing that I thought was really fabulous from Mike is his commentary about culture of experimentation. So actually dedicating time to learn, to get up to speed. Obviously, I appreciate a lot of our audience will think we live and breathe this technology because it's released to us so rapidly and it's constantly evolving. But he highlighted the fact that there is dedicated time in his diary, where he sits there and physically experiments and, investigates what's new, how could it be applicable, how can he start, experimenting and changing the way he's doing work today. And I think that's really powerful. So I really hope the audience takes that as an element of, a permissive scenario to go and, invest in themselves and investigate in some of that learning.
True. Yeah. And another quote that he said was that AI isn't going to take your job. It was never intended to be that case, but the person who does use AI to get ahead probably will. So an interesting take on that. And there's almost a warning to be taken there. If you're not sort of on board with this and sort of using it, there will be someone out there who is. How do you interpret that, Heather?
I think it's probably fair, but there's a kinder side to that as well, in that don't force yourself to use Copilot in the way you're seeing a colleague use it. And it goes back to that experimentation piece and that permissive learning. It's use Copilot, specifically how it's going to improve your day to day, and take the time to discover what that is, whether it's, automated prompts that are running on a daily basis, whether it's drafting, whatever it may be. Really think about the jobs that you personally hate. Really think about the jobs that take up a lot of your time. Think about, on a personal perspective, what gives you energy, what doesn't give you energy. And then put Copilot to work for those horrible scenarios. And really make it come to life to you. Don't steal Fred's quote or his prompt that he uses that's useful to him. Definitely think about personalizing it. But as you said, Steve, I think it's words of wisdom. It's cautionary, but it's definitely words of wisdom. So hopefully the audience thinks, right, how do we start getting the individual, i.e. myself, to consume and benefit from it?
Indeed. Yeah, I agree. It is a case of we internally in our team meetings, we will showcase some of the agents that we've built. But you're absolutely right. It should be taken as no more than that has worked for that particular individual. Take what they've done and use that as an inspiration to tweak, because the output that they give might not match the way that you like to consume things. For example, if it works for one person to take a big wall of text because they're more than happy to consume that, then that's fine. But you may not be comfortable with that. You may want to take that as an audio form or have it generate a video or something like that for you. So yeah, I think carving out that time is half the battle, but be curious about it. Towards the end of the week, we have Learning Fridays, don't we? So I try to use that time to say, right, well, okay, I've seen this really cool use case. I would love to try and tackle that. But yeah, again, I put my spin on it, the way I like to consume. I tell my agent specifically, this is how I like to have the output given to me. So yeah, I do think that carving out that time is half the battle. But if you can do that, then yeah, it's definitely can help.
Perfect. I think that was brilliant. So hope the audience love it. To the audience, please subscribe. Please consume, rate, review where you consume your podcast. And we look forward to seeing you for the next show.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.